The police officer wouldn't look me in the eyes when he said it. She locked him down there. Locked. My husband, the father of my child, in our own basement for 2 weeks. When they carried him out, he didn't scream, he didn't even cry. He just stared at the ceiling like he was counting invisible cracks, whispering something I couldn't hear. And my daughter, my beautiful, quiet, obedient daughter, stood at the top of the stairs holding the key. If you think you know your family, you don't. Not really. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my story of betrayal, and if you've ever trusted the wrong person, hit that subscribe button because you are not alone. Here is how it happened. I was reading comments on my YouTube videos the other day, and I realized I wasn't the only one who missed the signs. So many of you wrote, "I thought everything was fine too." And that's the scariest part, isn't it? When everything looks normal. Because in our house, everything looked normal. Until it wasn't. It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the cozy Sunday morning quiet or sunlight spills across the kitchen counter and coffee hums in the background. No, this silence was thick, heavy. It lingered in corners like it was waiting. My husband, Daniel, used to hum while he worked, always some old rock song from the 90s. He worked from home, ran his consulting business from the small office next to the basement door. That door stayed locked most of the time. He kept storage down there, old boxes, tools, holiday decorations. Or so I thought. Our daughter, Emma, had just turned 16. She was the kind of girl other parents envied. Top grades, polite, never talked back. She spent most evenings in her room studying or sketching. She rarely asked for anything. Too perfect. Looking back, perfection should have terrified me. The first red flag was small, almost laughable. Daniel missed dinner. He texted me that he had an urgent client issue and would be working late. That wasn't unusual. I left a plate in the fridge. The next morning, his plate was untouched. Emma said she hadn't seen him either. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I assumed he'd left early for a meeting. That's how denial works. It hands you reasonable explanations wrapped in comfort. By the third day, I started to feel it, that subtle twist in my stomach, the kind that tells you something isn't adding up. Daniel's car was still in the driveway. His wallet sat on the hallway table. His laptop was in his office. But he was gone. Emma told me calmly that Dad said he needed space, that he might stay with a friend for a while. A friend? Which friend? She shrugged. I didn't ask, Mom. Her voice didn't shake, her eyes didn't flicker. And God help me, I believed her, because the alternative was too dark to imagine. On the 10th night, I heard something. A thud. Soft, rhythmic. It came from below the kitchen floor, from the basement. I froze. I remember gripping the edge of the counter, telling myself it was the pipes. Old houses make noise. Wood expands. Water shifts. The sound came again. 3 knocks. Then silence. I looked at Emma. She was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone. Did you hear that? What hear? She said without looking up. My heart pounded. I walked toward the basement door. Locked. It was always locked, but suddenly it felt intentional. Where's the key? I asked. In Dad's office, Emma replied quickly. Too quickly. When I checked his office, the hook where the key usually hung was empty. Maybe he took it, she said from behind me. Maybe. Maybe. Every excuse built a wall between me and the truth. Over the next week, I convinced myself Daniel was having a breakdown, a midlife crisis. I even felt angry. How could he disappear without telling me? I called his brother, his friends. No one had seen him. Emma remained steady, calm, helpful. She made dinner, she cleaned, she even hugged me when I cried. And that hug, it felt different. Too tight, like she was holding me in place. On the 10th night, the knocking returned. Louder this time. Not pipes, not wood, fists. Desperate. I ran to the basement door and pounded back. "Daniel!" The knocking stopped. Silence swallowed the house. Emma stood at the end of the hallway watching me. Her face was pale. Not scared. Resolved. "Mom," she said quietly, "you shouldn't open that door." A chill spread through my spine. "Why?" I whispered. She stepped closer. "Because some people need to learn." Learn what? Learn what? That's when I realized this wasn't about a missing husband. This was about something much worse. And I was already too late. The way she said it still echoes in my head. Some people need to learn. Not angry, not hysterical, measured. I remember staring at my daughter, searching her face for the child I had raised, the girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms, the girl who cried when her goldfish died. This wasn't that girl. "Emma," I said slowly, choosing each word like it might explode. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer immediately. She walked past me into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and took a sip. The knocking didn't return. The silence felt like a living thing. "You always told me actions have consequences," she said finally. "Right, Mom?" My mouth went dry. "Yes. And that when someone hurts you, you don't just let them get away with it." A strange pressure tightened in my chest. "Who hurt you?" She looked at me then, really looked at me. And there it was, something raw, something buried. "Why didn't you ever notice?" she asked. The question hit harder than any accusation. "Notice what?" My voice cracked. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked back down the hallway and disappeared into her bedroom. The door clicked shut, and I stood there alone, staring at the basement door. I should have called the police that night. I should have broken the lock. I should have trusted the instinct screaming inside me. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. Sometimes we don't act because we're afraid of what we'll confirm. If Daniel was down there, if Emma had done something, then my entire life would shatter in one swing of a hammer. So I chose cowardice. I went to bed. The next morning, Emma was already dressed for school, calm, collected, braided hair, clean white sneakers. "Did you sleep?" she asked me. "Barely." She handed me a cup of coffee like nothing was wrong. "I think Dad will come back soon," she said. "He just needed time." Time. The word scraped against my nerves. When she left for school, I stood in the hallway staring at the basement door again. The house felt different without her in it. Quieter, but not empty. There was a presence beneath my feet. I could feel it. I walked into Daniel's office and searched every drawer. Nothing. Then I opened his filing cabinet. Behind a stack of old tax papers, I found something that made my blood run cold. A second key. Why would he hide a second key? My hands trembled as I walked back to the basement door. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint before I even unlocked it. I slid the key in. It fit. I hesitated. Just one turn, I told myself. Just look. The lock clicked. The smell hit first. Damp, stale air. Something metallic underneath. I opened the door slowly. The staircase descended into darkness. "Daniel?" I called. No answer. I stepped down carefully. Each creak of wood sounded like a gunshot. Halfway down, I heard movement, a rustle, then a weak, cracked whisper. "Please." My breath stopped. "Daniel?" I rushed down the remaining steps and flipped the light switch. And there he was, chained. Not heavily, not like in some horror movie, but restrained enough. A padlock looped through a metal pipe, his ankle cuffed, his wrists free, but bruised. He looked thinner, pale, eyes sunken, but alive. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" I fell to my knees beside him. He tried to speak, but his lips were cracked. I grabbed the chain, searching for how it was secured. "Emma," he whispered. The name came out broken. "What did she do? Why are you down here?" His eyes filled with something I had never seen before. Fear. "She knows," he said. "Knows what?" Before I could ask, I heard the front door upstairs open, then close. "Emma." I froze. Daniel's fingers tightened around my wrist. "Don't let her know I found me," he whispered urgently. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Why? She's our daughter." His eyes searched mine desperately. "You don't understand." Footsteps moved across the kitchen floor above us, slow, measured. "Mom?" she called sweetly. "You home?" My mind raced. If she saw the basement door open. "Go," Daniel breathed. "Please." I stood, torn between terror and instinct. Footsteps approached the hallway. I turned off the basement light and rushed up the stairs, closing the door just as Emma rounded the corner. She stopped. Her eyes moved from my face to the door, then back to me. "You're home early," I said, forcing a smile. "So are you," she replied. Silence stretched between us. Her gaze dropped to my shaking hands. "Did you go downstairs?" she asked softly. The question wasn't curious. It was careful. I swallowed. "No, why would I?" A long pause. Then she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Just checking." She walked past me and into the kitchen. I leaned against the wall, barely able to breathe. She knew. She absolutely knew. That night at dinner, she talked about school like nothing had happened. A math test, a friend drama, normal teenage things. Daniel was still downstairs, hungry, injured, and my daughter passed me the salt like we were a happy family. I realized something horrifying then. This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. 2 weeks. That's how long he'd been missing. 2 weeks she had fed him just enough to keep him alive. 2 weeks she had looked me in the eye and lied. After dinner, she washed the dishes slowly. "Mom," she said casually, "do you believe people can pretend to be someone they're not for years?" The plate slipped in my hands. "What do you mean?" She didn't turn around. "I mean,
Do you really know Dad? A cold realization began to form. What did she think she knew? Or worse, what did she actually know? That night, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, I heard her bedroom door open. Soft footsteps moved down the hallway toward the basement, a key turning in a lock. And then a scream. Not loud, not long, but enough. Enough to tell me that whatever truth was buried in my house was about to claw its way out.
That scream didn't sound like rage. It sounded like pain. I sat upright in bed, my body frozen between instinct and fear. The hallway light flicked on beneath my door. A thin yellow line stretched across the carpet. Footsteps, slow, measured, descending the basement stairs. I couldn't breathe. For 10 full seconds, I told myself to stay still. Daniel had warned me, don't let her know you found me. But what kind of mother stays in bed while her daughter holds a man captive? What kind of wife listens to her husband scream and does nothing? The kind who is afraid of what the truth might cost her. I slipped out of bed and crept to the hallway. The basement door was slightly ajar. Light spilled upward from below, and I could hear them. Emma's voice, low, controlled. "You're going to tell her," she said. Daniel's voice came out weak. "Emma, please, you're confused." "Am I?" A sharp clink of metal, the chain. "You saw the emails," she continued. "You thought I wouldn't look. You thought I was stupid." "Emails?" My stomach flipped. "I was protecting you," Daniel said hoarsely. "From what?" she snapped. "The truth?" Silence. Then another sound. A slap. I gasped before I could stop myself. Both voices went quiet. My shadow must have shifted across the doorway because Emma's head turned toward the stairs. For a split second, our eyes locked, and I knew. She wasn't surprised. She knew I was there. "Mom," she called calmly, "you should come down." My legs felt hollow as I descended. Daniel was sitting against the wall, cheek red, eyes glossy. Emma stood over him, not wild, not frantic, just determined. "What is going on?" I demanded, my voice breaking. Emma reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out her phone. "Ask him," she said, tossing it toward me. The screen was already open, an email thread, Daniel's name at the top. My hands trembled as I read. The emails weren't romantic. They weren't flirtatious. They were worse. They were secretive. Attached were documents, transfers, payments, large ones, to someone named K. Meyer. "Who is this?" I whispered. Daniel closed his eyes. "It's not what you think." Emma laughed, a short, bitter sound I had never heard from her before. "That's his favorite line," she said to me. "He says that every time." "Every time?" I repeated. Emma's jaw tightened. "I've known for months." "Months? What have you known?" I asked. She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. "He's been paying someone a lot of money from our accounts, and he lied about it." My heart pounded. "Daniel?" He struggled to sit up straighter. "It's complicated." "No, it's simple. You're stealing from us." "Stealing?" I felt the room tilt. "Daniel, tell me the truth," I begged. He looked at me with something between shame and fear. "It was an investment," he said weakly. Emma scoffed. "Then why hide it? Why use a fake name in the transfers?" "Fake name?" My mind raced. None of this made sense. "Who is K. Meyer?" I demanded. Daniel hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any confession.
Emma's eyes filled with tears, not hysterical tears, angry ones. "She's not an investor," she said. "She's a woman." The word dropped like a bomb. I stared at Daniel. He didn't deny it. My entire chest felt hollow. "For how long?" I whispered. "It's not like that," he said again, but his voice lacked conviction. Emma stepped between us. I saw the hotel confirmations, the deleted messages. "You think I don't know how to recover data?" Recover data? My daughter had been investigating her father, behind my back. "You locked him down here because you think he's cheating?" I asked, disbelief mixing with horror. Her expression shifted. "It's not just cheating." My blood ran cold. "What else?" Emma swallowed. "He's been meeting her for years." Years? The room felt too small. Daniel shook his head weakly. "It ended. I was going to tell you." "When?" Emma shot back. "After you drained the college fund too?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "College fund?" I whispered. Emma nodded slowly. "He moved money from my account, from the savings you thought was untouched." I looked at Daniel, and this time he didn't speak. I felt something inside me crack. "Is that true?" I asked. Silence. That was my answer. I stumbled backward, gripping the cold basement wall for support. "You stole from your own daughter?" My voice came out unrecognizable. "It was temporary," he insisted. "I was going to replace it." "With what?" Emma snapped. "More lies?" The air felt electric. For a moment, I forgot he was chained. I forgot she had done something unthinkable. All I could see was betrayal, layered, twisted, complicated. Emma turned to me, her voice softer now. "I tried to talk to him, Mom. I gave him a chance. I told him to tell you." I looked at Daniel. "Did you?" He shook his head slowly. "She deserved to know," Emma said. "You deserve to know." "So you kidnapped him?" I cried. Her face hardened. "I stopped him." Stopped him. The way she said it, like she believed she was the hero. "You don't get to decide punishment," I said weakly. "He didn't give us a choice," she replied. The weight of the truth pressed down on all of us. Yes, Daniel had betrayed us. Yes, he had lied. But this was something else. "You could have come to me," I whispered. She looked at me with a sadness that cut deeper than anger. "You wouldn't have believed me." And that was the part that hurt most, because she was right. I probably wouldn't have. Upstairs, the house creaked. Normal sounds, normal life, while in our basement, our family imploded. I looked at Daniel again. He looked smaller now, not just physically, morally. But chains weren't justice, and my daughter was standing on a line she couldn't uncross. "We're unlocking him," I said firmly. Emma's face went pale. "No." "Yes." "He'll twist it," she whispered. "He always does." "Emma," I said gently, stepping toward her, "this is not how we fix it." Her hands began to shake for the first time. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." She hesitated, and then she said something that made my blood turn to ice. "There's more." My heart stopped. "What do you mean there's more?" Her eyes flicked toward Daniel, and for the first time since I walked downstairs, I saw fear in her too. "There's more." The words hovered in the cold basement air like smoke. My eyes moved slowly from Emma to Daniel. He looked away first. That was the moment I understood something irreversible had already happened in this house. "What more?" I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Emma didn't answer right away. She walked to the small metal shelf beside the stairs and picked up a thin folder I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't old.
It had been placed there intentionally, for me. She handed it over. Open it. My hands felt numb as I flipped it open. Printed bank statements, highlighted charges, hotel bookings, wire transfers, private messages, and then photos. Not explicit, not graphic, but intimate enough. Daniel and a woman sitting across from each other in what looked like a cafe. Another photo, him walking into a hotel lobby beside her. The timestamp stretched back 3 years. 3 years. You followed him? I whispered. Emma nodded once. At first, I thought I was wrong. I hoped I was wrong. Daniel let out a shaky breath. You invaded my privacy. Emma laughed, a hollow sound. You invaded our lives. I kept turning pages. Then I saw the last document, a medical bill. My eyes scanned the name, Clara Meyer, the same woman, and below it, procedure. Date, 2 months ago. The amount Daniel had transferred that week matched the bill exactly. I felt the room tilt. What is this? I asked, my voice thin. Emma's jaw clenched. She was pregnant. The word detonated inside my skull. Pregnant. Daniel's eyes squeezed shut. It wasn't mine, he said quickly. Too quickly. Emma stepped closer, her voice trembling now, not with rage, but with something deeper. I saw the messages. She told you. She said she didn't want to keep it unless you were leaving Mom. My stomach dropped. Leaving. He had considered leaving for another woman with a baby. You said you needed space. You were planning to disappear. He shook his head weakly. It was confusing. It was complicated. Stop saying that, Emma shouted. Her composure cracked for the first time. I listened to you tell Mom you loved her every single day. I watched you sit at dinner and talk about my future while you were building another life behind our backs. Her voice broke. I heard you on the phone in the garage telling her you'd figure it out. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was strategic, calculated. I looked at Daniel, the man I had shared a bed with for 17 years. Were you going to leave us? I asked quietly. His silence was longer this time, and heavier. I didn't know what I was going to do, he admitted. That answer hurt more than a yes. Emma's breathing became uneven. She confronted me, she said to me, her voice trembling. 2 weeks ago, the day you told me you had a late client meeting. Daniel swallowed hard. She cornered me, he said weakly. She was hysterical. Emma's eyes flashed. I was calm. You threatened me. You deserved to be threatened. Emma, I snapped. Silence fell. She looked at me, tears streaming now. I asked him to tell you. I gave him until the next morning. I turned to Daniel. Is that true? He nodded faintly. And you didn't. He didn't respond. Emma wiped her face roughly. He said he'd fix it himself, that he'd transfer the money back and cut contact. He said if I told you, I'd destroy the family. Her voice cracked again. He made me feel like I'd be the one breaking us. I closed my eyes. Manipulation. Subtle. Strategic. Emma continued, her words tumbling out now. That night, I followed him again. He didn't go to a client meeting. He went to see her. The basement felt suffocating. When he came home, she said, I confronted him again. I told him I was done protecting him. Daniel's face turned ashen. You don't know what you're saying, he muttered. Emma ignored him. You grabbed my arm. My heart stopped. He what? Daniel looked up sharply. It wasn't like that. You left bruises, Emma said, her voice steady again.
You told me I was being dramatic, that I'd ruin everything. My gaze shot to Daniel's wrists, bruised. Then I looked at Emma's forearm, faint yellow marks near her sleeve cuff, healing. How long? I whispered. She looked at me. A week before I locked him down here. The world fractured. You chained your father because he grabbed your arm? I asked, my mind scrambling for clarity. No, she said quietly. I chained him because he told me if I ever mentioned Clara again, he'd make sure I thought you were unstable. The words landed like a blade. Daniel's eyes widened. I never said that. Emma stepped forward. You said you'd tell Mom I was having emotional episodes again. My breath caught. Emotional episodes. 2 years ago, Emma had struggled with anxiety, panic attacks. We had taken her to therapy. Daniel had insisted it was a phase. You said she'd believe you over me because I'm just a teenager. I felt something inside me shift, a rearranging, not excusing what Emma did, but understanding it. You isolated her, I whispered to Daniel. That's not true, he said weakly. Emma laughed bitterly. You started locking the basement door after I confronted you. You moved files down here. You thought I wouldn't notice. The lock, the second key, it hadn't been for storage. It was for secrets. I didn't plan to chain him, Emma said suddenly, her voice small now. I just wanted to stop them from leaving that night. We argued. He slipped on the stairs. Daniel looked up sharply. You pushed me. She shook her head. You were trying to push past me. Silence again. He twisted his ankle. He couldn't get up. I stared at the chain. You could have called me. I was afraid. Of what? Of he twisted again. The truth in this basement wasn't clean. It wasn't black and white. It was layered in fear, manipulation, betrayal, and desperation. Emma looked at me, her voice barely audible. I didn't want him to leave before you knew. Tears streamed down her face. I needed you to see who he really was. I looked at Daniel. He looked smaller than ever, broken, but not innocent. And yet, this had gone too far. We're unlocking him, I said firmly. Emma didn't move. Mom, no more secrets, I said, my voice steady now. No more threats, no more manipulation. Not from him, not from you. Daniel exhaled shakily. Emma's eyes filled with fresh fear. You think he'll tell the truth? She whispered. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. But what I did know was, the moment those chains came off, everything would explode, and I had no idea which one of them would survive it.
For a long moment, none of us moved. The basement light hummed faintly overhead. The air felt too thin, too charged. Give me the key, I said to Emma. Her fingers tightened around it. Mom, please, you don't understand how good he is at lying. I held her gaze. And you don't understand what happens if this goes any further. Her breathing quickened. For the first time since this began, she looked 16 again. Not strategic, not calculated, just scared. Slowly, she placed the key in my hand. It felt heavier than it should have. I stepped toward Daniel. He watched me like a drowning man watching a life raft. As I knelt to unlock the cuff around his ankle, I saw how swollen it was, purple, angry. He winced when I touched it. You kept him down here on a twisted ankle? I asked quietly. Emma's voice cracked. I brought ice. I brought food. I checked on him every few hours. Daniel let out a bitter laugh, like a prison guard. I shot him a look. This is not the time. The lock clicked open. The chain fell to the concrete with a sharp metallic sound that echoed through the room. It sounded like something ending, or beginning. Daniel tried to stand but stumbled immediately. I grabbed his arm instinctively. Emma stepped back, watching carefully. "Upstairs," I said gently. "We're going upstairs." Every step up the basement stairs felt symbolic, like dragging buried truth into daylight. When we reached the kitchen, everything looked absurdly normal. The fruit bowl, the fridge magnets, the clock ticking above the stove. How could this room hold so much deception? Daniel collapsed into a chair. Emma stayed standing near the hallway, like she was ready to run if needed. "Sit," I told her gently. She didn't. "Fine." I stood between them. "No more interruptions," I said firmly. "Daniel, you are going to tell me everything. Now." He rubbed his face with trembling hands. "It started as business," he said weakly. "Clara approached me about investing in a startup." Emma rolled her eyes. I ignored her. "It became complicated." "How?" I demanded. He hesitated. "We got close." Close. The word felt like acid. "How close?" He swallowed. "Emotionally at first." I laughed softly. "Don't insult me." He looked at the table. "Yes, it became physical." Emma inhaled sharply, even though she already knew. "For how long?" 3 years, he admitted. 3 years. 3 birthdays, 3 anniversaries, 3 Christmas mornings, all fake. "Did you love her?" I asked. Silence. That silence answered me again. "I don't know," he whispered. Emma made a disgusted sound. "You told her you were trapped." Daniel's head snapped up. "You read private messages. You wrote them," she shot back. "Enough," I said sharply. My mind felt like it was splitting in two, one part absorbing the betrayal, the other trying to keep this family from imploding further. "What about the pregnancy?" I asked. Daniel closed his eyes. "She told me it might be mine." "Might?" Emma repeated. "She wasn't sure. She was seeing someone else before me." Emma shook her head. "That's not what she wrote. You don't know everything," he snapped. "Then tell us," I shouted. The room fell silent. He exhaled slowly. "She wanted me to leave. She gave me an ultimatum." "And you considered it," I said flatly. He didn't deny it. The truth was uglier than I expected. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked quietly. He looked at me with something like regret. "Because I didn't want to lose you." The irony made me dizzy. "I already did," I whispered. Emma's voice softened slightly. "You told her you were going to phase us out gently." My blood ran cold. Daniel's face drained of color. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he said something that shifted the air again. "I ended it." Emma laughed bitterly. "After she told you she might keep the baby." He looked at me desperately. I panicked. "About what?" I demanded. "About losing everything." He gestured around the kitchen. "The house, my reputation, you." "You weren't worried about losing us," Emma said quietly. "You were worried about being exposed." That hit home. Daniel's silence confirmed it. I sank into a chair. 17 years. Reduced to this? "But you didn't leave, so why the secret transfers?" He hesitated. "She needed money." "For what?" "For the procedure." My stomach dropped. "You paid for it?" He nodded. Emma's face twisted. "She didn't even keep it." The room fell heavy. So this entire destruction, this web of lies, had ended in nothing except damage. "After the procedure," Daniel continued, "I told her it was over, completely." "And she just accepted that?" I asked. He hesitated again. "She threatened to tell you." Emma's eyes widened. "So you weren't protecting Mom, you were protecting yourself." He didn't argue. I leaned back in my chair. 17 years. Reduced to this? So let me understand, I said slowly. You had an affair for 3 years. You drained our daughter's college fund. You considered leaving. And when you got caught, you tried to silence her? I never meant to hurt either of you, he said weakly. I almost laughed again. Intent doesn't erase impact. Emma crossed her arms tightly. I thought if I forced him to stay, he'd have to tell you. Her voice cracked. I didn't know what else to do. And there it was. Desperation. Not malice, not evil. Desperation. But desperation can destroy just as thoroughly. I looked at my daughter. You should have come to me. I was scared you'd choose him, she whispered. That cut deeper than anything Daniel had confessed. Why would you think that? She looked at the floor. Because you always defend him. I opened my mouth to argue, and stopped, because she wasn't entirely wrong. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Then, a knock at the front door, sharp, unexpected. All 3 of us froze. No one was expecting visitors. The knock came again, louder, more insistent. Daniel looked toward the door with sudden panic. Emma's face drained of color. Who is that? I whispered. Emma's eyes flicked to Daniel, then back to me, and she said 3 words that made my stomach drop. She found us.
She found us. The words barely left Emma's mouth before the knocking started again. Harder this time. Not polite, not patient, demanding. Daniel tried to stand too quickly and nearly collapsed again. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. How would she know where we live? I whispered. Emma didn't answer. That silence told me everything. You told her? I asked. Daniel shook his head rapidly. No, never. She knew the city, not the address. The knock came again, 3 sharp pounds against the wood. My pulse roared in my ears. Mom, Emma said quietly, she followed him once. I saw her car. Daniel's head snapped toward her. You never told me that. You never told us anything, she shot back. The doorbell rang now, long, aggressive. This wasn't someone second-guessing whether to be here. This was someone who felt entitled. I walked slowly toward the front door. Every step felt like stepping toward the edge of a cliff. Behind me, I could hear Emma whispering urgently to Daniel, If you lie again, I swear. Stop, he muttered. Just stop. I reached the door. For a split second, I considered pretending we weren't home, but she already knew. The knocking resumed, louder, almost frantic. I unlocked the door and opened it halfway. A woman stood on the porch. Early 30s, blonde hair pulled back too tightly, dark circles under sharp blue eyes. She looked exhausted and furious. You must be his wife, she said immediately. No hesitation, no introduction. The air between us shifted. Yes, I replied carefully. Her gaze flicked past me into the house. He's here. Not a question, a statement. My throat tightened. Why are you here? She laughed softly, without humor, because he stopped answering my calls. Behind me, I felt Emma step into the hallway. The woman's eyes landed on her, and something flickered there. Recognition. You, she said. Emma stiffened. So they had seen each other before. Clara continued, her voice sharp. You followed him. You threatened me. Emma's jaw tightened. You threatened my family. Your family? Clara scoffed. He told me he was leaving. The words sliced through me. I turned slowly toward Daniel, who was now visible from the doorway, leaning against the wall for support. His face drained when he saw her. Clara, she snapped. Oh, don't say my name like you promised me a future. The air felt electrified. You told me she was cold, Clara continued, nodding toward me. You said she didn't understand you. I felt like I'd been punched.
Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. You said you stayed for your daughter, she added, glancing at Emma, because she was fragile. Emma's face went white. Fragile? I felt rage rise in my chest. You used my child as an excuse? I demanded. It wasn't like that, Daniel said weakly. Clara stepped forward onto the porch. You told me you were waiting for the right time, that you just needed to move money around first. Money? My stomach twisted. What money? I asked. She looked at me confused. The account he set up for us. The world tilted again. What account? Daniel looked like he might faint. Clara frowned. He didn't tell you? Silence. She laughed again, short and bitter. Of course he didn't. She pulled her phone out and opened something quickly. Then she turned the screen toward me. A screenshot of a bank account, joint, under Daniel's name, with a balance that made my chest constrict. That's where we said we'd start over, she said. Start over, not just an affair, an escape plan. Emma made a small, broken sound behind me. You were going to leave? She whispered. Daniel shook his head frantically. I was panicking. I didn't know what I wanted. Clara's expression hardened. You knew exactly what you wanted when you told me to schedule the appointment. The appointment? The procedure? You begged me not to keep it, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. You said a baby would complicate things. I felt sick. You said once it was done, you'd be free. The word echoed in my head. Free. Free from us. Daniel's silence confirmed everything. Clara looked at me then, not with hatred, but with something almost like pity. You deserve to know, she said quietly. He was going to leave in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The timeline aligned. The transfers, the secrecy, Emma's confrontation, the basement, everything collided at once. You lied to both of us, Clara said, turning to him. You told her you were investing. You told me you were trapped. Daniel slid down the wall into a sitting position, cornered, exposed, human, and finally out of options. He looked at Emma. She didn't look back. He looked at me. I felt nothing but clarity. And as he stepped toward the door, police sirens echoed in the distance, getting closer. Emma's head snapped up. I turned toward her slowly. Did you? Her eyes filled with tears. I called them earlier, she whispered. The sirens grew louder, and I realized this wasn't over, not even close.
The sirens grew louder, slicing through the night like a blade. My chest felt tight, every heartbeat echoing the chaos we had spent weeks building. Emma clutched my arm, trembling, not from fear, but anticipation. Daniel stood frozen at the doorway, his face pale, sweat beading at his hairline, realizing for the first time that control had completely slipped from his hands. Clara remained on the porch, phone in hand, watching him like a hawk ready to strike. Her presence alone made him flinch, and I realized something terrifying. Daniel's world, the one he thought he controlled, was collapsing around him, and there was no one left to defend him. The first police car rounded the corner, its headlights cut across the driveway, stark and accusing. Emma released my arm and stepped in front of Daniel. She didn't speak, but her posture was enough to send a silent message. Not here. Not like this. The sirens intensified. My stomach twisted in knots. I could feel the weight of every secret, every lie, every betrayal pressing down on me. And then it hit me. This was the moment all of our decisions, the wrong ones, the desperate ones, the protective ones, would collide. A patrol car stopped in front of the house. 2 officers jumped out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Police? Ma'am, is everything okay?" one called. I swallowed hard. We need help," I said, my voice shaking but steady. "My husband, he's been—" I stopped. I couldn't bring myself to say it. The truth felt too monstrous to speak. Clara, as if reading my hesitation, stepped forward. "He's been detained in our basement. We need immediate assistance. He's dangerous and unstable." The officers exchanged glances. One reached for his radio. "Copy that. We're on our way inside." Daniel's eyes widened. Panic surged across his face. He finally took a step back from the door, pressed himself against the wall, and muttered something incoherent. "You've lost your control, Daniel," I said, my voice low and icy. "Every manipulation, every lie, it's over." Emma's voice cut through the tension. "Mom, you don't understand. He isn't just lying. He's capable of worse. We have to be careful." I nodded slowly, the truth sinking in. For weeks, I had underestimated her, our daughter, underestimated her capacity for vigilance and courage. And now, as she stood tall beside me, I realized she had become the protector I couldn't be. The officers approached the front door. I stepped aside, letting them in. Daniel turned toward me, desperation in his eyes. "You can't do this," he pleaded. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, voice sharp. "I understand everything now, and it ends tonight." Emma didn't flinch. Clara remains calm, almost eerily so, her phone still out, recording or documenting every detail. Daniel's face twisted into a mask of terror and disbelief. He realized that no one, neither Clara, nor Emma, nor I, was going to protect him anymore. The officers moved into the house, their flashlights sweeping across the living room, the hallway, the basement door. Daniel's eyes darted to the basement. He opened his mouth, probably intending to argue, to negotiate, to manipulate, but his words died in his throat as one officer moved toward the staircase. Emma whispered to me, just loud enough for me to hear, "We have to make him cooperate, Mom. Otherwise—" I understood. Otherwise, everything could spiral further. Laws could be broken, lives could be destroyed beyond repair. "Daniel," I said softly, but with unshakable authority, "you need to come with them. You need to answer for everything. No more lies, no more manipulation." He shook his head violently. "You don't understand. You have no idea what she's capable of. I didn't mean for it to go this far." His words made me pause, but only briefly. Yes, I understood. I understood fear, deceit, and desperation all too well. But I also understood that what Emma did, what she was forced to do, was survival. One of the officers stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to come with us. Cooperate, and this will be easier for everyone." Daniel's hands trembled. His eyes shifted between us, as if searching for an escape that didn't exist. Emma finally spoke out loud, her voice strong, cutting through the tension like a blade. "You're done. Whatever control you thought you had, it's gone. The lies, the games, the secrets, they end tonight. You answer for everything." Clara stepped forward as well, her expression unreadable. "I don't care what happens after this. You manipulated us, you lied, you betrayed, and now it's coming to light." Daniel sagged. The fight left him. His bravado, the lies, the manipulation, it evaporated under the collective weight of the truth. The officers guided him gently but firmly toward the door. He cast one last desperate glance at me and Emma. "You don't understand. She—" "Shut up," Emma said, sharper than I had ever heard her. The doors closed behind him. The night air hit him like a cold wave. The sirens continued their relentless chorus. I felt something inside me crack and release simultaneously. Relief, fear, anger, grief, all tangled together in a raw knot. Clara turned to us, silent now. No words, just observation. Her eyes softened slightly, but the weight of confrontation remained. Emma leaned against the wall, breathing hard, her hands shaking. "I didn't know how else to stop him," she admitted quietly. I stepped closer and wrapped an arm around her. "You did what you had to do," I whispered. "You protected us." She looked up at me, tears streaking her face, a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "I was scared," she said. I know. The sirens faded into the distance as Daniel was taken away. The basement door loomed behind us, a silent witness to all that had happened. I glanced at Emma. "I need you to promise me something," I said softly. "What?" she asked, still trembling. "No more secrets, no more lies. We rebuild together, honestly this time." She nodded slowly, finally allowing herself to lean into me. "Okay, Mom." We stood there for a long moment, holding on to each other as if anchoring ourselves to reality. Outside, the world continued, unaware of the nightmare that had unfolded within our walls. But inside, a fractured family was beginning to piece itself back together. I realized something profound in that silence. Survival doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes, survival is holding on, enduring betrayal, and having the courage to face the truth, no matter how ugly it is. But even as relief washed over me, a quiet, nagging fear remained. Because I knew, deep down, that nothing in our lives would ever be the same. And I understood something else, more terrifying. Trust, once broken, is never fully restored.
The house was quiet now. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels empty, hollow, echoing with memories that won't fade. Daniel was gone, taken away by officers, his secrets and lies exposed to the harsh reality of consequence. The sirens had faded into the distance, leaving a strange, lingering stillness. I sank into the couch, my body trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. Emma sat beside me, her head resting against my shoulder. Neither of us spoke for a long time. There was nothing left to say, yet everything that needed saying was heavy in the air. Finally, she whispered, "Mom, what happens now?" I hugged her tightly, holding on as if I could somehow shield her from the pain that had torn through our lives. "We rebuild," I said, though the word felt fragile. "Together, slowly, honestly, without secrets this time." She pulled back slightly to look at me, her eyes red and tired but fierce. "Do you think we can?" I nodded. "We have to try, because we survived this, and survival is proof that we're stronger than we think." The basement door loomed behind us. It had been the epicenter of our nightmare, the place where trust was shattered, lies were forced into the open, and fear had lived for 2 long weeks. I finally walked over to it, touching the cold metal handle. The concrete walls held the memory of what happened down there, the despair, the desperation, and my daughter's bravery. I realized something essential then. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Emma had acted, not because she wanted to punish her father, but because she wanted the truth revealed before it consumed us. Clara's presence lingered in my mind, too. I thought about her, a woman betrayed, hurt, and forced to confront deception. Yet she had not sought revenge. She had come seeking clarity and accountability. There was a lesson there. Confrontation can be precise, clean, and necessary. Anger and vengeance are different. I turned to Emma. "I did the right thing," I said again. "Even when it felt impossible, even when it scared you, you saved all of us from something far worse." She exhaled, letting herself relax into the truth of that statement. But even as relief washed over us, I knew the journey wasn't over. Healing would be slow. Trust, once broken, does not restore itself overnight. It's built day by day, moment by moment. That night, we talked for hours about everything: what happened, what Daniel had done, what Emma had done, and what we needed to do to move forward. There were tears, anger, frustration, but there was also understanding, a fragile, delicate understanding that survival and truth are sometimes entwined with pain. In the following days, Daniel faced legal consequences. The financial manipulation, the deception, and his concealment of the truth were addressed. Emma and I testified, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity, to ensure accountability and to protect ourselves from future harm. Clara stayed away for a time, but we kept communication open. She had her own life to rebuild, and we had ours. There was no need for animosity. There was only recognition of what had been lost and what could be learned. Through it all, I learned something I hadn't fully understood before. Betrayal can come in many forms. It's not always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, insidious, and wrapped in the guise of everyday life. But the truth, when revealed, has a power that cannot be ignored. Emma changed too. She grew stronger, not because she sought strength, but because she was forced to find it. She learned that courage isn't about physical strength, but moral clarity, that doing what's right, even when terrifying, is a form of power. And, most importantly, she learned that she could rely on herself even when the people she trusted the most failed her. As for me, I understood the fragility of trust and the importance of awareness. Being a parent, a spouse, and a human means seeing beyond appearances. It means listening to your instincts, acknowledging your fears, and never underestimating the intelligence and resilience of your children. In the quiet of our living room, with Emma asleep in my arms that first night after Daniel's removal, I finally let myself breathe. The tension that had coiled tight around my chest for weeks loosened slightly, though the memory of the basement, the chains, and the lies remained etched in my mind. I realized that life doesn't grant easy resolutions. Pain, betrayal, and fear leave scars. But those scars are also reminders of survival, of bravery, and of the moments when we must act, even when it's terrifying. And in that quiet moment, I made a promise to myself, to Emma, and to the life we had to rebuild. We would move forward with honesty, we would reclaim the trust that had been fractured, and we would face the world together, not as victims, but as survivors. Because the truth, no matter how devastating, has a clarity that lies can never replicate. And sometimes survival requires confronting the worst parts of those we love, but also finding the courage to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we didn't know we'd make. Emma stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "We're okay now. We're safe. And we're together." The night stretched on, calm for the first time in weeks. The house no longer held the weight of fear. It held the promise of renewal. And I knew, with a deep, unwavering certainty, that this story, painful as it had been, would not define us. It would strengthen us. It would teach us. And one day, when the wounds had faded, we would remember not just the betrayal, but the courage it took to face it. Because in the end, survival isn't just about enduring, it's about standing tall after the darkness and refusing to let fear dictate the lives we live or the love we give. And in that quiet moment of aftermath of chaos, I finally understood the most important truths aren't about who betrayed you, they're about who stood by you and who you choose to be when everything else falls apart.